hoping you've clicked on this video because just like me, you love horror games. And if you're in the market for some lesser known titles to scratch that itch, then Xbox actually has loads of hidden gem horror games for you to dive into, and here are some of our favorites. This video is brought to you by LEGO Fortnite Lost Isles. Before we kick off, a couple of videos ago, I actually asked you what are some of your favorite horror games, and here's what some of you had to say. Nick says, I think my scariest gaming moments are from Amnesia: The Bunker. Great game, also available on Game Pass right now. I mean, Amnesia as a series is absolutely iconic. And also later in the video, there's a title that is giving very Bunker vibes, so stay tuned for that. Gaming Zombie says, Fear 3 is my favorite horror game. Love it, Gaming Zombie, especially fun in co-op. Over on TikTok, Dark Dreamer says, Layers of Fear has to be the best horror for me. The scares are perfect. I agree. I played the remake of it for the first time last year. It's so good. QTM says, Alien Isolation, not gonna lie. Oh, Alien Isolation I think is close to a perfect horror game for me, especially the way the xenomorph stalks you, the way it's coded. It's absolutely incredible. And believe it or not, it's nearly 10 years old. When you play that game, you'll think it was out like a week ago. It's still so next level. Amazing game. Thanks everyone that did comment. I'm sure I probably might mention a couple of your favorite titles, and if I do, be sure to sound off down below in the comments. Let's chat. Now, starting off our list with my personal favorite, Visage. Now, arguably, yes, Visage is probably a little more well known than some of the other titles we'll talk about, but it is still a haunted house game that you need to try. And for me, it is the definition of first-person psychological horror, especially the way it finds all different clever ways to play tricks on your mind and play on your different fears in the different chapters of the game. As you explore the gloomy corridors of a humongous house, you'll find that some of the rooms aren't where you left them. That pesky kitchen, always up to tricks. Suddenly, you'll start getting flashes of more morbid things that have happened there over the years with the previous owners, and exploring their stories too. Pretty soon, you'll be completely lost, too scared to open the next door and terrified of staying where you are. Just the way I like it. A slow burn horror with ultra realistic visuals, playing Visage feels like slowly slipping out of our world into a nightmare that you just can't wake up from. And trust me, I did have nightmares, fair warning. Another one of my favorite horror titles, Insound Mind, answers the all-important question, what if Inception was completely terrifying? And to be honest, Inception as a concept of the movie is kind of terrifying anyway, but here we go. This is the answer. Available on PC and Xbox Series X and S, this first-person game gives a whole new meaning to the phrase psychological horror by having you play as the shrink who can actually hop inside the mind of his patients by listening to their old recordings of their sessions. Except it turns out that these troubled minds aren't great places to be, funnily enough. Each one of them filled with dangerous monsters and devious puzzles based on that person's deepest fears. Complete with an extremely eerie original soundtrack, Insound Mind is a sort of horror game that is sure to get inside your head and not leave for a good while after. Plus, there's a talking cat. Right, let's talk about Stories Untold. This is actually made by a Scottish studio, No Code. You might have heard that name before. It's also published by Devolver Digital, so you know it's gonna be good. The game whips us back in time to 1980s England and to the heyday of text-based adventure games. Who knew words on a screen could be so scary? Scary! Stories Untold tells 4 different tales, kind of like an anthology type thing, taking the player to an abandoned house, a strange laboratory, a therapist's office, and Greenland. All terrifying places in their own way. In each chapter, it's kind of like a game within a game. You'll be doing a mixture of text adventuring, point and click puzzle solving, as you try and figure out just what the heck is going on as things get even more and more unsettling. And eventually, you might find out the mystery of the story if you haven't gotten freaked out and turned the whole thing off first. Now, people in cyberpunk stories don't generally have a great time, whether they're fending off legions of cyborg enemies or just trying to work out what all those origami cranes mean. But Observer System Redux really ratchets up the horror. This is from Bloober Team, the people behind The Medium and Layers of Fear. It's a first-person game that presents a chillingly beautiful world for you to explore, complete with 4K visuals, ray tracing, and HDR on the Xbox Series X that really brings its neon-drenched dystopian future to life. You play as a detective who gets to use a bunch of cool futuristic gizmos to help him solve cases, like augmented vision, which helps him spot stuff at crime scenes. His best trick is called the Dream Eater, which lets the player actually hack into the minds of suspects to see what's lurking in the darker recesses of their minds. Just don't expect to find anything cheerful. Now, this slow burn horror is a throwback to the horror games of old, complete with nice, janky, low poly graphics that somehow make things even more creepy. You play as a lighthouse keeper as he goes about his duties, occasionally wondering what happened to the last person to take his job. And then, as supernatural forces begin to arise, you start to figure it out. You're a smart one after all. If you're a fan of the 2019 movie The Lighthouse, or just generally in the mood for a bit of stripped back, weirdly creepy horror, No One Lives Under the Lighthouse is the game for you. I teased this one earlier. This is Ad Infinitum, and it very much reminds me of Amnesia the Bunker. Let's get into it. Playing as a traumatized soldier, this first-person survival game has you fighting for your life while your brain plays tricks on you. One minute you're fighting in the trenches, the next minute you're back in the safety of your childhood home, or is it entirely that safe? Who knows? That is a terrifying ghoul chasing you down the corridor though. Ad Infinitum is the sort of game where you never really know quite what's real and what's imaginary, just that it's all very, very frightening. As I mentioned earlier, this game reminds me a lot of Amnesia the Bunker, which, as a reminder, is available on Game Pass right now. So are some other great horror games. Now, Song of Horror takes the writerly scares of Alan Wake and combines them with that devious enemy AI of Alien Isolation I was talking about earlier. It creates a game that's basically guaranteed to run your blood cold. It's a third-person fixed camera game where you'll be investigating the disappearance of a famous author. There are 13 different playable characters for you to try out, each bringing their own skill set and point of view to the case, but no matter who you're playing as, you'll still need to deal with the presence. This evil entity pursues the player all through the game, learning from each move you make so that it's constantly finding new ways to be more efficiently evil. It feels a lot like fighting that xenomorph over and over again, and I'm not gonna lie to you about your chances, so good luck. Signalis is a classically styled survival horror game where you play as an artificial person named Elster. The game begins with you waking up in a strange, hostile place with your partner nowhere to be seen. And you may tell yourself, "This is not my beautiful planet." And you may tell yourself, "This is not my beautiful wife." Same as it ever was. From there, Signalis is all about staying alive. That means managing scarce resources, solving puzzles, and finding ways to fend off or get very far away from the many, many horrible things that you encounter. With its positively striking art style and moving story, Signalis is actually a bold new take on an old school type of horror game, and thanks to Xbox Play Anywhere, if you buy Signalis digitally, then you can freely move between playing it on PC and console, so there's loads of places that you can scare yourself silly. Our next entry, you probably have heard it if you've been on the internet in the last couple of years and enjoy watching Twitch streams, which, if you do, check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/xboxon. I'm gonna level with you. Unless you've got a morbid outlook and some fairly low self-esteem, Mory Assistant probably isn't your dream job. I mean, you'd at least want to be the main mortuary person, wouldn't you? But at least it certainly isn't boring. Not going by this first-person horror game. Mory Assistant is actually terrifying though. No bait. It's scary. Because while you'll have to carry out all of your standard work tasks like embalming and other lovely stuff, you'll also have to keep an eye out for bodies that have become possessed. Come across one of these bad boys and you'll need to figure out exactly what demonic entity has possessed them so that you can whip up just the right sort of exorcism before it's too late. With its procedurally generated story and a bunch of different ending options, the Mory Assistant will always keep you on your freshly tagged toes. Okay, switching gears now, Killer Frequency is quite an ingenious first-person horror that has you playing as a late-night radio host who has to save his callers from a mysterious killer. The sheriff is gone, so it's up to you to track the bad guy down, searching your environment for clues, solving riddles, and taking calls from a small town's worth of eccentric characters to garner more information using the game's branching dialogue system. Ask the right person the right questions and you might just save some lives. Get it wrong and, well, we're probably going to end up with a lot of dead air. If you're looking for some real horror movie vibes, the FMV thriller Simulakra might be the way to go. This game reminds me of movies like Unfriended and Host. Really fun. Originally released on Xbox back in 2019, its spooky story begins with the discovery of a missing woman's phone and the desperate cry for help that she's left recorded on it. It's up to you to track down her, and your only clues are what you can find on the phone. You can text her friends, trawl through her files, and generally do whatever it takes to solve the mystery. Fans of games like Immortality and Telling Lies, you should definitely check this one out. They say that the camera never lies, but Madison is a first-person horror game that will have you really hoping it is telling a few fibs. Playing as a young boy armed with an instant camera that connects the worlds of the living and the dead, you're going to be snapping up some seriously nasty things as the ghost of a serial killer forces you to carry out a sinister ritual. But by using the camera to spot things that the naked eye can't see and solve diabolical puzzles, you might just be able to escape that dark fate. The 60 FPS frame rates on Xbox Series X help the game stay nice and steady, even if your nerves don't. But the really brilliant thing about Madison is the way that it forces you to look directly at all of the scariest things in the game. And frankly, some of these ghouls could have benefited from a nice filter. If you go down to Blair Witch's Woods today, you're in for a big surprise. And that's true, even if you have seen the movie. Inspired by the classic found footage film, this semi-open world horror game stars a former police officer who's on the hunt for a missing boy. There are no conventional weapons for you to rely on, of course, this is a horror game after all, but you do have a flashlight and your faithful dog Bullet, which can actually go a long way to keeping you feeling safe at least. And with 5 possible endings to unlock, Blair Witch offers loads of replayability too. Okay, these next few games I'll talk about are all kind of similar, so if you like one, definitely check out the rest. In Crow Country, you'll be exploring an abandoned theme park to try and find out what happened to its founder, Edward Crow, who mysteriously disappeared. So you could say that you're trying to figure out whether there's been a murder of crows. Bad puns aside, Crow Country is a survival horror game inspired by Silent Hill and Resident Evil. The park turns out to be overrun with zombie-like creatures known as guests. So you'll be using whatever weaponry that you can get your hands on to mow them down. Although, I guess you should probably try and find out where these guys are coming from too, given that you're a special agent. The cool thing about Crow Country is that it also includes an exploration mode, which removes the enemies. So if you want the spooky atmosphere and the spine-tingling story, but aren't here for all the shooting stuff, you can still enjoy this excellent horror game. Murder House is another horror game with a seriously retro vibe thanks to lo-fi scary specialist developer Puppet Combo. You can just feel the inspiration of classic slasher movies pouring out of this one. It stars an ambitious news crew who break into the home of a notorious, but supposedly dead, serial killer known as the Easter Ripper. And then they find out that that was not a very smart thing to do. Not only does Murder House use the sort of fixed camera found in the early Resident Evil games, but it also uses tank controls to make moving your character extra cumbersome. All of which just adds to the tension when the killer suddenly appears and you're desperately trying to get your lumbering journo to run away before, oh no! Oh well, too late. Next on our retro-inspired horror list, Bloodwash is a gnarly first-person horror game that takes its inspiration from giallo movies, old-school Italian slashers, which were known for being super stylish and extremely graphic. The graphics here might be delightfully low polygon, it's another special from Puppet Combo, but the subject matter is just as grim. You play as a woman living in a rundown building while a serial killer terrorizes their city. And guess what you just happen to bump into while you're on the way to the local laundromat? It's always when you don't dress up, isn't it? Bloodwash is a proper video nasty, full of gore and killer jump scares. In fact, it even comes with a VHS mode that makes the whole thing look even grimier. It's downright nasty. Unless you're suffering from an acute case of pectophobia, that is, a fear of playing cards, you probably don't tend to find deck building games all that scary. But that could all change if you give Inscription a try. Here, you'll be playing one-on-one matches against a mysterious opponent, deploying different creature cards to battle for control of the game board. As you play through different matches, you'll get to experience unique gameplay twists and steadily improve your deck. But you'll also sometimes get to leave the table and walk around, learning more about the game and other players and what it all means. Basically, Inscription is a brilliant card game wrapped inside an intriguing story and then soaked in creepy vibes that make just sitting playing cards with someone feel so oddly sinister. If you prefer to have a few friends by your side when the red stuff starts to fly, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one to check out. Complete with Dolby Atmos sound on Xbox Series X to really make those chainsaws sing, this Dead by Daylight style asymmetrical horror game is a 7-player affair where 3 of you take control of the Slaughter family while the other 4 play as their potential victims. The victims will have to use their stealth skills to avoid being detected while they try to find a way to escape. As for those playing as the family members, well, they don't call it Texas Chainsaw polite conversation now, do they? A dread-inducing Day 1 addition to Game Pass back in June, Still Wakes the Deep takes players to an oil rig off the coast of 70s Scotland where a raging storm has severed all lines of communication. You'll be exploring the rig in first person, trying to locate the other members of your crew and avoid the various hazards that the storm has created, as well as the strange presence that seems to have crept aboard. With no weapons to hand, you'll have to rely purely on your wits to survive. Between the gorgeous soundtrack, stunning voice work, and stellar visuals featuring ray tracing and 60 FPS frame rates, Still Wakes the Deep is one of the most immersive horror games I've ever played. This is the list I'm bringing to you today. Have I missed some of your favorite horror hidden gems? Please feel free to head to the comments and unhide them yourself. I'd love to check them out. This video was brought to you by LEGO Fortnite Lost Isles. The newest update to LEGO Fortnite takes you to the Lost Isles, which has a diverse ecosystem featuring 5 different environments: the beach, plains, jungle, mountains, and floating islands. There's plenty to find on the Lost Isles, including Klombos, who can become both a friend and a steed to you. But be careful, golems also roam the Lost Isles and have a tendency to get aggressive. Step boldly ashore and prepare for a LEGO adventure unlike any before. LEGO Fortnite Lost Isles is available right now. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!